received substantial evidence that he was involved in trafficking young women and children to the Virgin Islands for a very long period of time through our airport, through his private jet. And then he would, by helicopter or sometimes boat, would then transport them over to Little St. James. And that's where he has his complex where he lives, which is his official residence as well. And that these young girls and women were subject to sexual assault, sexual exploitation, through coercion, false imprisonment, where the passports at some points were taken away. The actions were just reprehensible. And it was quite a number of women, and we found through our investigation that at least up to 2018 that continued.
Wow. Welcome back to the Random Sound Mind podcast. I'm your host, JT. Well, not going to be smiling for long on today's episode. You saw the intro clip of 60 minutes. I may break all of this, what I'm going to talk about, into 2 episodes. It depends on editing. Parts 1 and parts 2. I hope you tune into both. Government official, they're talking about their investigation into Epstein. Now, unless you've been living on another planet, you've definitely heard of Jeffrey Epstein. You've definitely heard about the files and some of the sick, twisted stuff going on. You've certainly probably heard about the controversy over what has been released, what has not been released, what should be released, redactions, etc., etc. But today, before I get into the rest of the clips that I'm going to show you, as well as some comments, I wanted to just kind of give a warning. This might be the most difficult one I've done so far. And again, I don't have a ton. I don't have hundreds and hundreds under my belt, as you can see if you're a subscriber. But what I can say is that this is very dark stuff. The preparation to do this episode has taken several days, and it's just been some dark stuff I've heard, listened to, that I'm not going to show you. What I am going to show you is still sick, twisted, and ultimately satanic. So I just want you to know before you get going what you're getting into. I have taken out some clips and pictures that I didn't feel like I wanted to put out there. You can probably go find them on your own if you're curious. And this podcast may lead you down that road to explore more. But the theme of today is the other stuff besides Epstein and trafficking children. I haven't even, in this episode, touched on the intelligence relations he had, the money laundering, how he got rich, all that stuff. But this was most important to me because we're getting to what's really some going on behind the scenes, as well as exposing this network that's out there. And that's the darkness of this. And frankly, there's some scariness to it, and as there should be. So without further ado, here we go.
Like, his films are so different. And he was a weird guy, too. He did, like, complex mathematics in his spare time. I just pulled my script from Eyes Wide Shut. Except there's an entire...
All right, now who this guy is, that was one of the co-writers of Pulp Fiction, the famous Quentin Tarantino movie. Remember Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta making his comeback? It was in the 90s. I mean, obviously it's a huge hit movie, but just check out what he has to say about this movie, Eyes Wide Shut, with Tom Cruise, that Kubrick did, and the messages and what it was trying to say in this man's opinion.
Thread that's kind of been squashed in that film, and that's the 2 men that are throughout the movie, that are constantly in the background of the film, who eventually, in the final shots of the film, you see, like, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman in that final scene in the toy store when she's looking at the Rosemary's Baby bassinet, which is totally Kubrick saying something, and they never take their eyes off their daughter.
Rosemary's Baby, movie from the 60s, about a woman who was raped by Satan and gives birth to the Antichrist. There you go. And that
until the moment they take their eyes off and the final.
See the two men in this shot. You've got the child. You got husband and wife in this movie, and you've got these two men in the back of a toy store.
The line of the movie is coming up. You see those two guys walking off with the daughter. They're taking her away. They've given their daughter to the pedo cult.
Wow.
That's what's happened at the end of the movie. And there's an incident where when they first screened the movie in England, people who were outside, this is all secondhand, by the way. There were people who were outside of the theater who could hear inside of the theater Kubrick yelling at all the executives and saying, "It's my movie, you can't cut it. You can't fucking cut my film, blah, 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 blah." Big argument going on. Then he dies like 4 days later.
Oh, geez. On to another clip now. You heard what he said about exposing the pedo cult in Hollywood. That's been claimed by famous child actors who were molested, trafficked around. It's kind of an open secret. There's documentaries after documentaries and exposés on this kind of stuff. One director, Kubrick, decided to put this secret in one of his movies. Not that he was into it, it was to expose it.
They're eating babies, man. Like, that's...
so that you think is real? So,
well, yeah, not only that, I think that there's, sacrifices going on every day in Los Angeles. High-level musicians, let's say, high-level female musician,
Wow.
is like, killing chickens every day, doing sacrifices. Like,
high level.
Well, I don't want to say. I don't want to say names because I don't want to get sued, and I don't want to be dead either.
What is it?
I'm not shocked about this. Somebody cutting chickens up and but the eating babies comment, we're going to get more into that. Again, there's so much I didn't show. He didn't want to say more because he didn't want to get sued, or did you catch that? Didn't want to be dead.
The fact that the super elite.
And just for those of you who are maybe kind of sort of watching, this has a lot, my podcast lately, I'm putting a lot of pictures up as you're listening. So you may have to pause it. I should have said that at the beginning. And kind of read the headline. This guy's talking about the same thing, Hollywood elites, Duncan Trussell. So that little shot of, screenshot is of this interview he's doing.
They don't follow the same laws we do. They don't have the same view
He's talking about the Hollywood elites.
Ethics, morality. It's almost a different species, in fact.
Different species.
It's not just emails Epstein wrote, it's emails to Epstein.
Depraved Satanists run this world. Celebrities, politicians, and famous CEOs have all been implicated. These documents include FBI intake forms, internal email chains, financial memoranda, and first-person written statements that list multiple individuals across politics, business, entertainment, and...
So this guy, I've never heard of. I looked at some other stuff. He seems somewhat credible. You have to make your own conclusions if Satanists are running the world. But what I found is the occultic satanic elements in some of these elites, global elites, or as I found one guy, I loved how he said it, he goes, they're not elites, they're the predator class. And the way they view the rest of us. These are uber wealthy, very famous, high status kind of people. People that 98% of us, 99% of us will never even meet, rub shoulders with, never. Okay? And this JPEG from Loudwire is the elements of satanic stuff in performances by celebrities, be it a play, but usually it's musicians. Actors will do things. Just makes me wonder why. And I don't, again, I don't want to be one of those people that reads conspiracy or reads Satan and everything. Those kind of people annoy me. But when you see the preponderance of evidence, it does make you, at least it made me, think a little bit deeper and to see things in a different light.
Philanthropy within reported disclosures and correspondence summaries. The next document shows that Epstein was receiving torture videos from a redacted contact. Where are you? Are you okay? I loved the torture video. He had a baby-making ranch in New Mexico, where women
True.
not of age were used as human incubators, with one of the victims writing about it in detail in her diary. Prince Andrew also tortured a victim and proceeded to have the victim unalive right after. Ghislaine Maxwell recruited a girl for a modeling career. Instead of modeling, she was sold as a slave for sex and torture. Prince Andrew was an accessory to her death as he tortured her and me to force her murder. That Jay-Z was also implicated after being present during an abduction of a victim, where the victim was assaulted by Harvey Weinstein while Jay-Z watched it happen. After this point in the account, the document describes the individual regaining consciousness in a room with multiple high-profile figures.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it right there. So he shows pictures of Jay-Z and Prince Andrew and Harvey Weinstein. I don't know if you can read this or not. I can. Leon Black and Bill Barr. Bill Barr was in Trump's administration first. He was the guy who did a worked for the DOJ, United States Attorney, and did a terrible job on the Russia collusion hoax, which we all know now is a hoax. It's been proven. Did a terrible job. Bill Barr's father who used to work for the CIA, hired Jeffrey Epstein to work at that preppy school in New York when Epstein had no talent. Remember, he taught mathematics and some other stuff. And then he went and worked in the world of trading and hedge funds. The other guy, Leon Black, I watched a long podcast by a guy the other day, and Leon Black being the main reason why Epstein went from being a talentless hack, a high school teacher, to being a billionaire. One reason is this guy named Leon Black, and that's not really his last name. It's like Blackowitz. So just wanted to stop and point out those people. But Leon Black, if you do a Google search, you're going to find that's more on the money side, but also blackmailing. No pun intended with his last name. So.
Presence. Why is all of this information being revealed? The answer is pretty simple. God is exposing all of these wicked people in this hour to shatter the idols that people have created out of popular figures who are some of the most morally satanic, depraved people to ever exist. Jesus tells us in Luke.
Do I believe that God is exposing this stuff? Yeah, because God is sovereign, and God is, in his attributes, and his many, many attributes that we give him, one of them is, of course, goodness. Goodness, he is, we can even hardly put it into words, we can't understand it, but he is the ultimate, infinite source of goodness, which would, of course, be opposed to, I would say, wickedness. Talking about famous celebrities, there was a Netflix documentary on this guy, Jimmy Savile. This kind of stuff is sickening. Famous people abusing kids. And there's levels. I said this to somebody the other day. Yes, pedophilia is horrible, terrible. Bad things should be done to you after you get convicted. But then there's, if you add on, okay, I'm on a pedophile, I torture. Okay, not only do I pedophile torture, I permanently harm, even kill a child. And then you add another layer onto that, which I said in a very early episode on dissecting evil, is there is something truly wicked about all those bad things. And then another layer is that you take great pleasure in doing all those evil things, is the pleasure that these very high profile, very powerful people took. I couldn't watch some of the videos that are I just couldn't do it, but hearing people describe it with tears in their eyes and then these people who are filming torture essay of little kids and then taking great pleasure in it. But Jimmy Savile, hundreds of kids he molested. It's a terrible documentary to watch, especially when you realize how people saw it and they let it slide, or they didn't have the courage, the greatest of all virtues. They didn't have the courage to go say, hey man, are you doing this, or to investigate or anything. Courage is the one you need the most, especially in this day and age.
8:17. For nothing is secret that will not be revealed, nor anything hidden that will not be known and come to light.
I also threw on a verse. Again, I'm throwing up pictures hopefully you're watching this, but says God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. Ecclesiastes 12:14. Maybe some people that are trying to expose this are God's agents. That's the way I look at it. And you're going to see here one in a minute.
Good word for human meat? Wait, what? Beef jerky, delicious. JoJo is here and will walk the jerky over to Jeffrey. Why would jerky walk around? Why would it do that?
Exactly, why?
Delicious lunch, beef jerky.
That is 100% talking about breeding children, harvesting children, or they even say children. They get lazy, just say children. Or, man, I want more of that beef jerky. Okay, I'm going to walk some up. They're going to land some on a boat. And then, just 15-year-old girls, folks, they're bringing in. And then they're bringing in boats of the walnut sauce, the brown Caribbean kids, black kids they've been grabbing different islands. And they're like, last night you served us cold jerky. I like it hot and live. Let's start getting into this.
So that's really hard to hear, right? That's also been proven. Epstein himself said they were giving money to poor families for their children. You're going to see that later. And the wickedness of taking advantage of people in poverty who are just trying to get their next meal or trying to survive, who have kids and say, hey, we'll pay you all this money if you give us your kid. And all these code terms that, these sick people are using, like jerky, all these other things. And as you've seen in the news, resignation after resignation, people's names are popping up. And I think the ones that are immediately resigning are like, oh no, the light has hit the darkness. And I just pray that more and more light hits the darkness. This guy, by the way, is Alex Jones. If you don't know, he has gotten a really bad rap over people who hate him because his 30 years of doing this has been exposing global elites, if I can just summarize his whole deal. And he's been on this whole Satanism, cannibalism, pedophilia for, I think he said 15 of those 30 years. Long time. When Trump said the bad things about Epstein back in 2015 and the Clintons and 2016, he was already on it. The stuff that he's had to watch and then verbally said that I've heard is, I feel for him. I mean, he broke down on one of the podcasts I watched because it was so dark and twisted. I don't even know if I should say some of the stuff that he saw. But thankfully he wouldn't show it. He would talk about it.
When I posted reports and stuff about this, I noticed, when I post videos and reports about torturing and murdering children,
Yep.
the people's religion that is being holier than thou, saying, I'm covering up, post things like this. Look, yeah, it's racist Trump. This photo of him with an underage girl is said to be from Epstein's files. Did he rape her? He must be held accountable, or there must be clarification. Anyone could look and see. That is a real photo. That's his daughter going to a gala, a movie premiere.
Yep.
But see, this is what the left's doing. They're flooding the zone with real things, but saying it's something else, or with AI. Buying babies from women.
So again, just because your name's in the Epstein file doesn't mean you were doing something immoral, illegal, wicked. Trump was in there. So are a lot of other people. And they lie. They show a picture with Trump with his daughter and say that was an underage girl. And if you zoom in on that picture, it's Ivanka.
Getting women to get pregnant so they can harvest the baby. Just like I told you years ago, Epstein did over 15 years ago.
Yep, there it is.
And Peter Nygaard before he went to prison for it. Already covered that. I'm not going to get to it again. He admitted.
Peter Nygaard, you saw his picture there with the tan. He designer into fashion. He's in jail now, and you're going to hear why. And it's draining babies' bodies of blood, injecting it to his body. There you go. There's your global elite. There's your predator class.
He paid women to have babies so they could abort them, so he could suck the blood out of them and put it into himself and other so-called elites. This is the real stuff. This is real. And Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, after all their shows and all their podcasts saying, Satanism, pedophilia, which I don't need to just believe them. I know it's true. Back before they were even in any type of liberty movement,
Back before they were even out of college,
Yep.
I was covering this stuff. But now they tell us, oh, trust me, bro, there's nothing there. It's in Netflix documentaries with previous stuff that came out in court that came out like 6-7 years ago.
Immediately red flags, right? When stuff is public information in a documentary, in documents that were, released years ago, and you redact them, or you don't talk about them, or you say there's nothing to see here, what is the slow rolling? What is the delay? What is the hesitancy to redact things, to unredact things?
Do it, but I mean, it's like in Netflix documentaries where he bought
what's that?
9 and 10-year-old girls from their families in Eastern Europe, and that they were still working for him when he died as adult women that would go out and procure the girls. And Gunderson was...
Yep, so there it is again. Epstein and his predator pals buying children. They said from Eastern Europe, but they do it from all over. We want to look at if there's a definition of courage next to all this pedophilia, Satanism, torturing, killing kids, and you want to see a profile in courage, this guy, Ted Gunderson.
And almost looked at by Nixon as the FBI director, but he was too good. So the rest of it, when Bush had done him, he was like not lightweight. That's what I'm saying. This is not a lightweight guy. And everything he said turned out to be true. This person exposed the pedophiles. That person exposed the pedophiles. That's more than anybody. That's the guy. And when John DeCamp went public in Nebraska exposing and all the rest of it, brought down the Republican pedophile ring, that's the guy. That's the guy. Ted Gunderson right there.
There's a clip of the satanic drug cult that he exposed.
Like Van Helsing exposing and fighting these people. Exposed nests of Satanists at military bases, just everything. It's wild.
I mean, like Van Helsing. What a great apt description. Going to fight evil by yourself for the most part. The CIA. There were secret groups in the CIA doing this, facilitating this. Some of the stuff I read is that they're the ones helping this as well. That Epstein, there's CIA ties that are just clear as day, as well as Mossad.
They were working for the CIA and groups above it out of Europe, and that the plan was to externalize the method and sexualize children and normalize their culture and finally just bring it all out and have it be accepted. And that's what all of this is. You can see.
Let me just stop right there. You may want to pause and read this. First sentence says that Gunderson claimed the U.S. government and CIA used the Child Protective Services system to funnel children into these dark networks. When I said this was dark at the beginning and evil and wicked and tough, maybe you get a picture now of what I was talking about. Again, I'm sparing a lot of really explicit material because I didn't want to put it out there. I do think Trump is God's agent, but I also think he's messing up big time in this. He needs to have somebody like a Ted Gunderson just say, take it and run with it and let the light hit all these little dark corners where these people are hiding and doing the most vile, wicked things.
And that's really the good news at the end of the day.
Right.
Is they're not happy. This stuff's all coming out. And one way or another, the cover-ups aren't going to work. And this is only going to supercharge the destruction of the globalist power structure worldwide.
Disrupting this power structure. I used to think this was all nonsense. The more you learn and people who know this stuff, you're like, wow, these conspiracy theorists keep getting proven correct. So then, therefore what? Until next time, stay alert, stand firm, show courage, and be sound.